Well, good afternoon. I'm getting around to making another cooking video. It's been a while since I've made one. Things have been kind of hectic around our house and I just haven't done anything about it. But at any rate, I'm going to make something today that is on every lunch counter and restaurant menu in the world. Back when I was growing up, and it was called a hot roast beef sandwich. It was a hallmark. It was the top item on every menu that you ever saw, but you just don't find it anymore, and I can't understand why, because it's so darn good. It's easy to make. It's relatively inexpensive. It's no more than a hamburger or something like that, but you just never see it anymore. So I'm going to make a hot roast beef sandwich and show you how it was made and what it was like when I was a young man, which has been a few years ago. The round of a roast beef, or the round of a meat on a cow, could be equated with the ham on a pig. It's a rear hip, and it is kind of a tough meat. It's too tough to be cooked like a steak. It has to be slow cooked and moist heat and for a long time to tenderize it. But it has a great flavor, very little fat in it, and it goes a long ways. And the restaurant would cook a half a round in a big roaster, cover it with some onions, carrots, potatoes, celery, garlic, and things like that. Put a lid over it and put it in a slow oven about 225 to 250 degrees for 6 or 8 hours, and it would have a lot of juice around it when it was done. And that juice was used to make a gravy. All they do is add a thickener to it and to thicken it, and they had the gravy made, and that was the other part of the what it was needed to make a hot roast beef sandwich. And then they took the round to a slicer like a deli uses. In fact, if you want to make your own, you can just buy a deli sliced roast beef and you can make your own sandwiches. In fact, that's what I'm going to do here. I haven't cooked around, so I'm going to use deli sliced roast beef. You start off with a couple slices of white sandwich bread, lay them in a plate. You don't need to toast it or anything like that. And get out your sliced roast beef. Put several slices on there. Good 3 or 4 ounces. Then ladle the brown gravy over it. Now normally most places would just put a blob of mashed potatoes over there to the side and some of the same gravy on top of the mashed potatoes. I didn't have any mashed potatoes, but I do have some macaroni and cheese. So I'm going to use that as the side. You can use green beans or anything that you wanted. And there is the hot roast beef sandwich. Now I'm going to add some macaroni and cheese to the side of it here and take it to the table and see how it tastes. There it is on the table, and we'll take a bite of that and see how it tastes. Cut me off a bite of this, get a piece of this roast beef. There's an old saying, you can eat a cowboy boot if you put gravy on it. Check out this macaroni and cheese. That is another dish that was very popular in those days. And the going price on a plate lunch like this was from anywhere from 35 to 45 cents and came with a glass of iced tea, no extra charge. And it was only slightly more than a hamburger. Back in those days, a hamburger was 20 cents for a good sized one like you pay $4 for today. I remember a hamburger place when Frida and I first got married and the kids were young. It's called Griff's 19-cent hamburgers. And one time the kids wanted to go in. They were like 4 and 5 or something like that. Steve and Lisa were. They got in line to go to the door or to the counter to order their hamburgers, and they got up there and the clerk behind the counter there just looked over their heads and started taking orders from adults behind them. And I walked up there and I told him, I said, look, they were next in line. He said, well, they're just kids. And I said, they're just kids, but they're my kids. Now I want you to take their orders. And the guy kind of got huffy, and the boss came out there and gave him one look, and he decided that he would wait on my children. But back in those days, hamburgers were, McDonald's first hamburgers were a dime. Of course, that was in the late 30s, and they slowly went up. Now you do well to find one for $5. But everything else has gone up in price, but I think that the price of food has increased faster than the wage of people and things like that. I want to tell you a quick story. In the town where I lived is a small town, and a fellow by the name of C. Blaster, he had a cat that he hated. It was his wife's cat, really. Every time he went to sit down in his favorite chair, that cat was in it, and he'd throw the cat out. And he always believed the cats belonged in barns anyway. So one day, he had a place about 4 miles out of town where he had a few head of cattle out there, a windmill and a barn, and he picked up the cat and took it out there and dumped it out and says, lots of mice here, knock yourself out. 3 days later, the cat was back at his house. So the next time he took it about 10 miles, and it took the cat almost 2 weeks to get back from that. And he was talking about you just couldn't get rid of that cat. One day, my dad and I were going to the cattle sale up in Guyman, Oklahoma, and we were like 50 miles north of our home, and up ahead of us we saw this car pull off the side of the road, and the right door opened and something came out on the ground, and the door closed and the car went on. My dad says, "That was Steve Laster's car," and got up there, and he says, "There's his cat." So we stopped. I got the cat. We took the cows up, unloaded them, went back and dropped the cat off at his house. When he got home, there sat the cat. He convinced himself that he had hauled off somebody else's cat. Never did tell him the truth about it. I don't know if he ever made friends with his wife's cat or not, but it was the cat he couldn't get rid of. So, God bless America, God bless Texas, and where else could you find a picture like this other than Texas? Bye.